Hello everybody, and welcome back once again to Gaza Goji YT, where today I'll be pitting my hybrid Iblis up against the most powerful hybrids of the entire Great Hybrid War that I've collected across different platforms, as my hybrid will be fighting each and every single one of these monsters, one by one from weakest to strongest in classic Goji Ga style. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting off with the final 16 of Goji Center's Great Hybrid War, the very hybrids that because of which my hybrid Iblis was created. And I'm gonna keep it brief for you, every single non-sauropod hybrid of the final 16 is getting absolutely demolished. The only two of this category that can actually put up a solid fight against my hybrid are Nemiphaganax Eversur and Tyrannoceratops barbaricus. Now, to make something very clear, I'm using Nemiphaganax Eversur in his revamped form, not his final 16 form. This revamped form exhibits a half a ton size increase coupled with the replacement of Megalodon and Dinopithecus in the genome with Bramble Shark and Basking Shark. Bramble Shark providing stronger and more lightweight denticles for defense, as well as cartilaginous reinforcements to the skeleton. The latter trait being further bolstered by the Basking Shark, which also provides its specialized liver for filtering out huge amounts of minerals in the hybrid's body, which was necessary given that Nemi also utilizes precise gene editing to implement the iron deposits in the northern short-haired shrews' teeth onto the denticles, making its defense a lot more robust. Couple that with its powerful bite, and Nemi can prove to be a very big nuisance to my hybrid. However, Iblis being 2 times the size, coupled with its larger array of weapons and still robust armor, allows him to quite easily overpower Nemi, knocking him down to the ground and stomping him to death, or biting through his armor, or antagonizing him with a direct hit to the lungs or head. There is still a multitude of ways for my hybrid to take down Nemi, but it will be a very long fight. However, for Tyrannoceratops, it gets even more interesting, as its powerful horns, which was the main reason why it was crowned the ultimate Indam 2.0 killer alongside Gilgamesh, will prove very critical in this fight, as they give him the ability to one-shot my hybrid with a lucky gore in between my hybrid squills. However, it is a very lucky shot that will require a bunch of circumstances to play out perfectly for it to actually pull off such attack. And my hybrid isn't just going to sit there and let him do that. Instead, it can use its powerful forelimbs to keep Tyrannoceratops at bay, with a direct hit to the skull. While it may not fracture it due to how hard Tyranno's skull is, but it might cause a mild concussion, making him lose his balance, something that Iblis would take advantage of, flanking him and knocking him down to the side and destroying him with a direct stomp to the torso. Or, if he wants to make it more gruesome, Iblis can just bite down on Tyranno's neck and decapitate him in the process. Now moving on to the sauropods, starting with Monstrosities. As while this sauropod hybrid is the only one of the final 16 that can reliably rear up and stomp my hybrid, Iblis being the same size grants him the ability to wrestle down with Monstrosities, knocking him down to the ground and using its own stomp against him, as well as biting down on its neck or impaling him with his horns. Armor Titan is not that much different. However, being 65 tons means that even with the Diplodocus base and the Megatherium's heel bone, it likely would be way too heavy for it to reliably rear up and stop my hybrid. And so, my hybrid can quite easily get around Armored Titan, and with its tail weapon being the weakest of the sauropod hybrids of the final 16, it can quite easily target the torso with no fear, impaling it with its powerful horns, or also going for the neck with a powerful bite, with jaws that are not willing to let go, even when taking into account the spiky armor of the Armored Titan. It's only a matter of time before Iblis decapitates the sauropod hybrid. Now let's move on to the big boys, starting off with Behemoth, since, ironically enough, Iblis would have a much easier time dealing with him than with Armatis. Now first off, Behemoth is the biggest of the sauropod hybrids in the final 16, and the biggest hybrid overall in the final 16, meaning that it will not be capable of rearing up in order to reliably stomp my hybrid to death. Which, I hear you screaming at me right now, but Goji Center literally shows Behemoth rearing up in their video. Awesome, bro! That's literally it. And because of that, Iblis has a clear path into one-shotting Behemoth by targeting its neck using its powerful horns, severing its spinal cord with a charge and killing him off in an instant. Another way Iblis can take down Behemoth is by targeting its torso, given that Behemoth's torso is only protected by a thick crocodilian hide from the African dwarf crocodile, which would not be enough to protect him from the powerful horns of Iblis. So with enough speed and momentum put up behind its gargantuan mass concentrated onto the sharp tips of the horns, Iblis can generate a powerful shockwave that can absolutely obliterate Behemoth's vital organs upon impact, and thus bringing him down in no time. Now let's move on to Armatis. might very well just be the most powerful hybrid and the most difficult for my hybrid to deal with in the final 16. This is because, while not as extensively armored as Behemoth, this does come with a few perks, such as allowing our Metis to land its tail tracks much more easily than Behemoth, which was the reason Iblis was able to comfortably pierce and one-shot Behemoth by targeting its torso. And also, speaking of the torso, our Mantis' torso is protected by the spike battery of Borealopelton from the sides, trying to take down our Mantis by goring it through the torso a Herculean effort. However, considering that it's not far off from Behemoth in terms of size, it also would not be capable of rearing up, and thus my hybrid would also be capable of targeting our Mantis' neck with a powerful gore, severing its spinal cord and taking him down in an instant. Moving on to a quick warm-up round for the upcoming rounds, Iblis versus the Indam 2.0. Yeah, I don't think I need to delve deep into this one. Iblis being almost 3 times the size coupled with its much more powerful weapons and robust armor would make it pretty much impossible for the Indam to land a single scratch on him. In contrast, Iblis' powerful weapons can easily one-shot the Indam 2.0, slicing her in half with a direct hit with that Thagomizer or with a powerful bite. Now on to a more interesting fight, Iblis versus Ultima Imperatrix. As you can notice, the sheer number of similarities in between these two combatants makes this a fairly close fight, except that Iblis' significant advantage in terms of size and mass allows him to put out a lot more force behind its attacks, quickly gaining the upper hand and dethroning the ultimate Saurian Empress. Now the real challenge begins, as next up is Potentia Noster Immortalibus, also known as Heracles, made by Pixel Studios, who also made Nemi-Phaganax Eversor. This 18.5-ton Goliath of a Ceratopsian exhibits the same strategy as Pheropelta, but with a more offensive-driven touch to it, given its larger and more muscular frame, its powerful axe-like tail, stronger chompers courtesy of Udanoceratops, as well as its specialized boss horn from Pachyrhinosaurus, aka its base genome, that's designed for cracking hard skulls. All of that combined with the intelligence of the New Caledonian Crow, allowing it to think strategically in combat. So clearly, this would be a tough nut to crack, but it wouldn't be impossible, as adopting the Pheropelta strategy also has its drawbacks, namely locomotive capacity. As you can expect, Heracles is not the fastest nor the most agile of combatants, which allows Iblis to quite easily keep its business end pointed squarely at Heracles at all times, and using a similar tactic to what it used against Tyrannoceratops, with a powerful pot strike it can cause a mild concussion to Heracles, making him lose his sense of balance, which Iblis would take advantage of by flanking Heracles and knocking him down on his back, before finishing off with a powerful stomp. Now from this point on, Iblis will have to go up against hybrids that are even larger than himself. However, as you'll see in a little bit, this won't be that big of a problem for him, starting off with the most powerful mammalian hybrid in the entire Great Hybrid War, Bane of the Tusk. This large but magnificent Proboscidean hybrid is not only bigger than mine, with a weight of approximately 35.2 tons, but is also faster, making any charge with those Arsinotherium horns potentially troublesome for my hybrid. However, my hybrid Iblis also has its own major advantages against Bane of the Tusk. One, it's more agile, courtesy of its Ceratopsian body plan being better adapted for fast turns, as well as its more flexible joints. Two, it still has overall better weapons, as while in terms of goring weapons, it cannot generate the same impact forces as Bane of the Tusk, but its overall body plan and even horns are still better adapted for goring altogether, making Iblis more comfortable with pulling off such attacks. Not to mention that its secondary weapons such as its bite and its Thagomizer are capable of crippling Bane of the Tusk by targeting the legs. And as for the forelimbs, assuming that Bane of the Tusk tries to rear up in order to stop my hybrid, Iblis can simply rear up as well and wrestle down with Bane of the Tusk. And using his dexterous forelimbs, even though Bane of the Tusk is slightly heavier than my hybrid, Iblis still has enough strength to knock him out of balance and finish him off with his own stomp. And lastly, Iblis' armor is also much better adapted for shrugging off attacks than Bane of the Tusk, who simply has Samusuka's skin and dense musculature for protection. And so, Iblis walks out victorious once again. Next up is Mr. Pickles by DragQueen55 from Discord. Now let me tell you, this fight in particular is going to be really intense, as Mr. Pickles is a 40-ton Archosaur hybrid, boasting an incredibly bulky and robust frame, with armaments that rival those of even Iblis. Strong Tyrannosaurus Rex jaws complemented by hippo tusks and the raised neural spines of the musk ox, a devastating stomp, and a long and flexible tail tipped in a spiky tail club using a combination of Shunosaurus and Kentrosaurus. And its defense, just as formidable as its offense, with sauropelta providing protection to the upper body, Chinese alligator providing protection to the lower body, and Mylodon filling in the blanks with its subdermal armor. Couple that with the New Caledonian crow intelligence, making it as strategic if not more strategic than Heracles, and yes, Mr. Pickles is a really worthy opponent for my hybrid. However, my boy isn't at a disadvantage, as while Mr. Pickles is an incredibly powerful opponent, it does have one major weak spot, that being its speed and agility, given that the Apatosaurus body plan, coupled with the Sauropelta armor, make it exceptionally slow and sluggish, allowing Iblis to run circles around the thing and target its tail. That's because Mr. Pickles' tail is a vital component to its power, not only protecting its flanks, but also allowing him to rear up reliably, and thus, by removing the tail out of the equation, Iblis won't have to worry any longer about getting stomped, and now it can comfortably target Mr. Pickles' torso, especially given that Mr. Pickles is exceptionally taller than Iblis, meaning that Iblis can strike the lower body area, which is protected merely by the crocodilian hide of the Chinese alligator, allowing it to one-shot Mr. Pickles similar to other hybrids that preceded him. Next up is Lizzie Prime, the most powerful crocodile hybrid in the entire Great Hybrid War, and one that has made a lot of buzz ever since it got released around a month ago. Now, quite frankly, the confrontation between Iblis and Lizzie Prime would be rather similar to the confrontation between Iblis and Mr. Pickles, given that Lizzie Prime and Mr. Pickles share a lot of common similarities, except that Lizzie Prime is a lot bigger at 52 tons, which does make it questionable whether she can actually rear up or not, but considering the fact that Mamenchisaurus and Arctodus, aka the base genomes for Lizzie Prime, are capable of performing such feat, well, give her the benefit of the doubt that she can rear up. Nevertheless, they won't change the outcome as much, as Lizzie Prime is still as slow and sluggish as Mr. Pickles, and thus my hybrid can easily run circles around her, target her tail, and gore her from the sides. Now we have gotten onto sauropod territory. Crud, or Invicto Titan Catastrophica, is arguably the most well-known sauropod hybrid here on YouTube outside of the final 16. And for a very good reason. After all, this 70-ton Marapunisaur hybrid is nothing to sneeze at, being incredibly big and bulky, protected by golden pangolin scales and porcupine quills, powerful legs with sharp pointy claws on its tips for kicking any lesser beings into oblivion, a long and prehensile tail tipped in a powerful tail club from Shinosaurus, and being quite the genius for a sauropod, this bad boy is no joke. However, similar to other big boy sauropods from the final 16, namely Armatus Gigants and Behemoth, this guy would be way too heavy for it to reliably rear up in order to stomp my hybrid to death. And so, Iblis has a clear path for also one-shotting Crud by targeting its neck, which is only protected by the denticles of the treasure shark, which for the record, the shark denticles and other types of fish scales do dry out when left out of water for extended periods of time, so yeah, this defense would rather be obsolete. Now, say that my hybrid for some whatever reason decided to kill Crud by targeting its torso, which is definitely a viable method given that pangolin scales aren't strong enough to protect Crud from goring attacks. However, that does put Iblis in the range of Crud's tail, which can be used to wrap around its horns and causing him to lose the fight. However, in the case that that does happen, my hybrid can simply bite off the tail club using its powerful jaws, with the porcupine quills doing little to no effect, courtesy of the Maasai giraffe additive. And so, yes, my hybrid can target my Crud's torso, although it would be a lot safer to go for the neck either way. And last but not least, the final boss, Invictosaurus, also known as Benjamin. I picked this hybrid as the final boss not only because it's the biggest in this bracket outside of Behemoth and Armatus Gigantus that is, but also because its creator, Manny Manison, has figured out a clever way to make Benjamin capable of rearing up despite weighing at around 72 tons. And that's by using the JP Brachiosaurus, which can rear up while still being at around 56 to 75 tons. And so, this makes it to where Iblis is no longer capable of targeting Benjamin's neck, as by doing so, it puts itself at risk of being stomped to death. So, with this in mind, can my hybrid actually kill Benjamin? Believe it or not, yes, he can. And to figure out how, you must learn a little bit more about him first. You see, Iblis is aggressive. Very aggressive. He's also quite fearless, meaning that he is not intimidated by any hybrid no matter how big, how strong, or how dangerous that hybrid could be, and he will attack it no matter what. However, one thing that my hybrid does not have is recklessness, given that most of the contributors to my hybrid's heightened aggression also contribute to its heightened intelligence, namely Tyrannosaurus Rex, Saltwater Crocodile, Komodo Dragon, and Kia Parrot. all of which are ambush predators, which have learned to favorize patience over aggression when hunting, figuring out the best way to take down their targets and when is the right moment to strike. In a similar manner here, Iblis would not go straight for the kill by targeting Benjamin's leg, otherwise he gets stomped to death. Instead, he would take his time, figuring out what's the best way to take down Benjamin, and then execute. And in this case, it would be following a similar strategy to that of against Mr. Pickles. Go for the tail. Now luckily, Iblis is more agile than Benjamin, even though Benjamin is said to have extra neck flexibility courtesy of JP Brachiosaurus, which would likely be expected due to the sheer amount of osteoderms on its neck, as well as faster reflexes from the mongoose, which wouldn't really work at that size. So my hybrid should be capable of targeting the tail very comfortably, and once the tail is taken down of the equation, my Benjamin is no longer capable of stomping my hybrid to death, and thus Iblis is capable of effectively taking down Benjamin either by goring its neck or taking down one of its legs, crippling him and knocking him down to the ground, exposing its underbelly for a powerful gore. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did, even though my voice is absolutely butchered after this recording. And be sure to tune in next time where I might just show my hybrid to counter Reiner 2.0. So thank you so much everybody for watching, and until next time, goodbye.